All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for coming. My name is Joseph Piner, and today we're going to talk about how we can motivate ourselves to be healthier, and should obese people be forced by law to pay more for their health insurance based on their BMI. So, like me, everyone in this room has paid more for their health care premiums every year that we've worked here. Why is that? Well, the number one reason for the rising health care costs in the United States today is associated with the obesity epidemic in this country. Enjoy your pizza. According to Forbes magazine, obesity in America has added $190 billion to health care costs annually, which has now surpassed smoking as the number one reason for poor health care, or for poor health in America, and we are all paying for it. I'm here today to talk to you about a way to make insurance premiums more affordable for healthier individuals by charging people on a sliding scale based on their BMI. The higher the BMI, I believe the more a person should have to pay, thus incentivizing healthier behavior, healthier lifestyle. BMI is an acronym for Body Mass Index, and it is calculated using your height and weight. Any BMI over 25 is considered overweight. Anything over 29.9 is considered obese. So first, let's talk about the cost of having a high BMI. As everyone knows that we now have a health and wellness program here at our company. This isn't by accident. According to an article in the Indiana Business Insider, which is written by a professional healthcare program director, chronic healthcare costs are the number one reasons for higher health insurance premiums. 75% of chronic healthcare costs come from two main areas: depression and obesity. According to Newsweek, people who are obese can rack up over $200,000 in medical costs over their lifetime. And I think it's time that they start paying their fair share of the cost instead of passing it along to healthier people. The Incidental Economist tells us that the average annual cost for a person with a low BMI of 19 or below is around $2,500 annually. A person with a BMI of 25 who is considered overweight had an annual cost of about $2,900 annually. And finally, a person with a BMI of 33 or higher, which is deemed obese, has an annual health care cost of $3,500 or more per year. So, as you can all see, the cost impact of being overweight and having a high BMI leads to higher health care costs for all of us. So now that you understand the cost, let's talk about the other risk associated with having a high BMI. I heard a news show on NPR last week that said 38% of Americans are considered overweight, and another 30% of the population is considered to be obese. So that's 68%, almost 70% of our population is considered overweight in this country. USA Health News, which is a news site for doctors, says that being overweight increases your chance of dying early by 6%. Now 6% may not sound like a lot, but when you remember that almost 70% of America is overweight, that's a lot of early deaths occurring, unnecessarily. So now we see that not only is there an additional cost of having a high BMI, there is also an increased risk of dying early that comes along with it. The information I've covered so far is startling, so let's also take a time to look at the flip side of the argument. I'm 6 feet tall, I weigh 215 pounds, and according to my BMI of 29, I'm considered overweight, right on the borderline of being obese. I go to the gym 3 times a week, try to eat healthy as possible, but I'm considered basically obese. 1 more pound or a half an inch shorter and I would be considered obese. if I'm not a good counterpoint to having a high BMI equaling higher healthcare costs, consider an article I read about Thomas Lancome. This guy's a fitness model and a personal trainer in Australia. I read about him online with Sydney Morning Herald newspaper. He's got a BMI of 27.5. The guy's ripped to shreds, he's a personal trainer and professional athlete. Based on his BMI, where he lives, he's charged a higher insurance premium, although he's more healthy than most people I've ever met. So maybe BMI isn't the most fair way to predict healthcare costs for people. There's also the stigma and mental health issue that comes with labeling someone overweight or obese. An article in the Huffington Post says that studies have shown that people who feel shamed about their body weight or BMI have higher incidences of depression and other mental health issues. Which, if you remember, mental health issue and depression is the other top chronic health issue plaguing Americans today. So that can also lead to higher healthcare costs if the person is depressed. So I think we understand that BMI may not be the best indicator of a person's overall health, but does play a role in indicating if you're living a healthy lifestyle. So in conclusion, let's step back and look at the big picture. As we can see, there are many difficulties associated with having a high BMI. There's the increased cost of health care and the higher risk of terminal health issues that could result in it, including early death. There's also conflicting data that shows people can have high BMIs and still be healthy. To combat the additional $190 billion of health care that I mentioned earlier, which is caused annually by obesity, employers can attempt to implement a wellness strategy, just like we're doing here. And according to Indiana Business Insider, again, a company-sponsored health and wellness program like the one we have here typically has a return on investment of about $1.50 to $3 for every dollar the company spends on the health care and wellness of its employees. Just like people with poor driving records who are charged more for auto insurance, I believe that the same should apply for people with high BMIs. Their health insurance should be increased to offset the cost for the people who have lower BMIs and are in better shape. I think that this approach is not only fair, but also think that it would improve America's overall health through incentivizing healthcare costs and making people live healthier lifestyles. That's it for the presentation portion. Now I'd like for everyone here to please ask questions, and I'll answer them in the Q&A session. We've got plenty of time left to do so as our food digests. So go ahead. Any questions?
What makes up the cost associated with a high BMI?
So Nick, your question is, what makes up the cost associated with having a high BMI for healthcare? Well, that cost is made up with additional doctor's visits, additional checkups that have to occur because a person is overweight. Being overweight leads to things such as back injuries because you're carrying more weight above your waist. It also leads to higher instances of heart disease, high blood pressure. So these major health items, as your weight increases, these health issues also increase and result in more trips to the doctor. And then when you really get overweight and start becoming ill with major issues such as heart disease, the treatments for these health issues at the doctor's office add to that cost. Insurance companies have to pay more, they pass the cost along to us. Good question. Anyone else?
Yeah. Does the United States have the highest rate of obesity?
Brad, your question is, does the United States have the highest rate of obesity in the world? No, it does not. Actually, even though we are at almost 70% BMI rank in the world, we are 19th. We rank 19th in the world. The first countries on the list, 1 through 10, are mainly made up of